Hi, this is Alexis from the Kiteboarder Magazine. I'm here with Gary Siskar, and we're walking through the 2018 Liquid Force line in Sabo's backyard.
We are here, Alexis and Rich Sabo's tropical backyard in Hood River, Oregon. Great to have you out here, by the way.
I'm glad to be here in the shade finally after being a week in 107 degrees.
Totally. I hope you got some time on the water. I know
Not
you got
yet,
a little
not yet.
fun
I
stuff
jumped
ahead.
into the water. You see Sabo's got the jacuzzi over there. He's working on my coffee. I mean, this
You
is
can go
great.
take a shower.
I could take a shower,
So
man.
you can get some water time if you want. All right. Well, hey, let's look at these kiteboards that we have for
Absolutely.
2018. So first thing I want to say is we do have an extremely extensive line of kiteboards for any ability level or style of kiteboarder out there.
You guys always have like the full range.
Yeah.
I mean, like no exaggeration.
I mean, boards, Liquid Force, it's in our DNA. That's our heritage. That's where the whole Liquid Force wakeboard thing started, naturally progressing the kiteboarding. So, you know, our deep knowledge of building a kiteboard comes a lot from building wakeboards for 20 plus years. So we do have a lot to offer every kiteboarder out there. So if it's anything from like our drive models, which is a great affordable what we call like a price point board. So if you're just getting into kiteboarding or you're a little bit on a budget, you can get a great full wood core board at a great price. Get out there, progress with this thing all the way to being an advanced kiteboarder, and then you can figure out what you want to step up to, all the way to like light wind boards like our Libre, which we'll talk a little bit more in a minute, and so forth, all the way to some of our Pro Edition boards, which have tons of features, performance benefits packed into them. We have something for every single kiteboarder out there in our twin tip board line, and that's what we're talking about here. So let me highlight just a couple exciting ones that we have new for this year. So The first thing I want to start out with, which we're extremely excited about, is the Benchmark. The Benchmark is Gisela Polito's Pro model. So everyone I think out there knows Gisela Polito. She is a 10-time world champion. I think our first time she won a world championship was when she was maybe 13 years old, maybe 12 years old, somewhere in there. She's been kiteboarding a long time. And with that being said, during her whole career of professional kiteboarding, she's worked really close with her father, Wanma, on designing a board specifically that suits her needs. So when she started riding for Liquid Force 2 years ago, which is a great partnership we have, part of the deal with her was we were going to develop a board with her and her father that suits her needs. It's a great board that would suit that kind of women-specific freestyle free ride market or rider out there. And it took about a year and a half to make this board, numerous prototypes and so forth, to get everything really perfect on how she wanted it. So we're excited that we're releasing this board right now. So let me talk about it, the few things that went on in this board. So one is definitely 100% designed by her and her father in terms of the shape, so the outline of the board, in terms of the rocker profile of the board, and in terms of the bottom contours. The other thing she was really specific about was the flex pattern and so forth. You know, she is really light overall, and actually a lot of women out there are really light overall that are riding kiteboards. So that's something that you have to keep in mind when designing a board that's going to perform at a high level for a gal out there. You don't want something so stiff that it creates a harsh ride. And also when it's too stiff too, it's actually hard to get the pop out of the board because you can't push the board and allow it to flex to get the release from the water to do your tricks and so forth. So about a year and a half in the making, we're excited to release this board. Comes in a 130, 135. Some of the specific things going on. So like I said, the outline is very particular to Gisela. What is particular about that is you can tell it's a little bit narrower overall. So for a gal, you don't have to roll so hard onto the edge to find the edge. When you're doing transitions to your toe side and so forth, it's a little bit easier to do that because you don't have to cross as much base and so forth. So easier to ride with a little bit narrower width overall, from the tips all the way through to the midsection. The other thing we got in this board is a very interesting bottom shape in it. So it has a slight kind of peak up through the middle, so that gives a double concave to a step rail on the side. So this is great for edge hold and water direction going through the tips of the board. That helps you go upwind a lot better. This also helps smooth the chop out quite a bit. So if you're in really choppy conditions, when you're redirecting that water and it's not kind of trying to move the board around, it really cuts through the water nicely and smooths out the chop. The other thing that what this does is having this nice kind of double concave to this, you know, very shallow peak in the middle with these edge rails, is the release off the water. So when you're redirecting all that water and so forth, you go to load and pop off a little like kicker piece of chop, or even if it's off of flat water, it lets that water release out the back of the board and it lets you get into the air a little bit easier. So that's really nice on that front. Double channels out the tail. Again, effectively does the exact same things that we were talking about, just helping that water direction outside there. Liquid rail on both sides, so that's outlines the whole board. That's proprietary to Liquid Force. So a lot of brands out there use ABS. ABS is a lot more solid and so forth. Sometimes impacts the flex of the board because it is a more solid material than the wood and the glass. Where ours is a proprietary liquid rail, flexes real nicely, but you know, if you accidentally drop the board right up onto a rocky shoreline and so forth, you're protected. The other thing, inline inserts. All of our boards have inline inserts unless they're specific to a heel side and toe side edge. What that does on the inline side is, say you do hit the bottom, hit some rocks and so forth, you can flip your stance around. You have a nice fresh heel side edge, which is normally what you're really trying to jam on to progress upwind and so forth. You want that to be clean. So that is the benchmark Gisela Pulido, designed with her father in conjunction with our engineers. 100% Polina wood core. The wood cores that we all use are Polina wood. That's the best wood to use overall. Sustainability wise, it's nice. It grows really fast, readily available. Plus the weight to strength ratio on Polina and the flex characteristics is very easy to control. So that's what we use in all our boards. It's an awesome wood to put in the middle of this sandwich, so to speak. So that's the Gisela Pulido Pro Model 130, 135 in this one.
Awesome.
Sweet. Next one I want to talk about is Brandon Scheid's updated model, the Echo. So this is new for this year. It does share all the characteristics of the past 2 years in terms of shape. So Brandon worked hard on this board for a couple years with Jimmy Redmond and Peter Merhoff, who's our two board engineers and designers and shapers. Tune that shape in. That shape's been working great for a couple years. But what we want to do this year is kind of fine tune it to the next level, get in the headspace of that wake style rider, because we know Brandon is pretty much the landlord of that space right now.
Yes, he is.
So
he just won an event too.
He did. I think he just won a few events. He won the Hood Jam.
Oh yeah.
He won the Blowout. So he's on a roll right now. He's the king of the gorge. King of the Gorge. So the King of the Gorge's board is right here. This is the Echo. This comes in two sizes, in a 137 and a 142. So let's talk about the changes for this year. So besides having it, what he calls his fluted bottom on here, so it's a very kind of heavily channeled bottom with concave in it. So it's a triple concave rolling through 4 channels out the tip. So that's great for direction, pop off the water and so forth. But what we have added to it this year is a grind base for one. So we added a nice base. We all know that he hits sliders a lot, rides rails quite a bit. So this makes for a nice durable bottom. So now we have a grind base on here, way more durable and way more slick for riding sliders and rails. The other update we did is we added more rocker. So year over year, we've kind of been bumping up the rocker. He's been fine tuning that out a bit. So now we have a continuous rocker overall. And what is really unique about this rocker, much different than a lot of wake style boards out there, is we have a nice kind of continuous, but it does flip up like in the last, let's say, third of each of the tips. So you have a nice solid platform under your feet for hitting rails. You also have a nice solid platform under your feet when you're trying to progress upwind, so you're not pushing a ton of water. So you have a nice straight edge underneath there. So it's still very efficient overall, but yet it has more rocker to get the pop off the water, ollie up onto rails to do these big boosty high freestyle type tricks. The other thing we added to it this year is, and this is proprietary to Liquid Force too, is we added what are called flex tips. So if you can see, off both tips is we added liquid rail that runs in between the channel sections of the board. What that does, it allows the tips to be a lot more flexy overall. We can have a nice stiff midsection. So for going upwind, for holding an edge and so forth, you have a nice stiff board. But then also when you're on the rails and for absorbing chop, you can press out a lot easier, and then it acts like a shock absorber where it's kind of absorbing that chop.
Real heavy bottoming out.
Totally. So the big thing with guys who are riding as hard as this is negative flex and so forth. Yep. So you want to try, it's like a hard balance. You know, you want to trying to keep this midsection nice and stiff, so when they land hard, the board, negative flex means the board will actually bend the other way. So you have your rocker, then it bends. You land really hard. If it bends this way, what you do is you end up catching your tip, going over the handlebars. It's a really hard thing to balance between a board that they want flexy to ride on rails, but yet land really hard when they're doing big kicker tricks or they're just doing freestyle tricks in general. So the way we addressed that was by putting these flex tips in. Nice soft tips, but yet stiff in here where you'd normally get that negative flex. So it's pretty awesome. So again, we have a 137 and 142 Brandon Scheide's board.
Nice.
That's pretty cool overall. The last board I'd like to highlight for today is our Libre. We did release this board mid-season last year, but not a lot of people have seen it. You can see this thing's a big dog overall.
It's like the size of a door.
This is the size of a door. Matter of fact, I might put this on my bathroom door at home. But you're right. So this is a light wind specific board. This is for all the people who don't want a hydrofoil. How's that? They just don't want a hydrofoil. I don't exactly. We're trying to figure it out, but for the people who don't want a hydrofoil, get out there in the lighter wind conditions. We made a very, as you can see, light wind specific board. So what makes it light wind specific and unique for Liquid Force is first we start out with a Polina wood, 100% Polina wood core that we CNC extremely thin. Whoops, sorry, didn't mean to hit that. But you can see how it's extremely thin overall, like out at the rails and out towards the tips. But yet we have this really cool kind of organic CNC'd shape in there to control the flex of the board so it's not too soft overall. So what does that do? One, it takes away a lot of the wood material, so you get a really light board. This board for a 160 is extremely light. I think if people pick this up, they're shocked overall. It actually is going against a lot of boards out there in this category that are made out of carbon. This is not a carbon board. This is a regular glass construction, so the benefit of that, a little less expensive than a carbon board, but yet you're still achieving a nice lightweight board in a 160, and we also have it in a 150. Other things that are very light wind specific to it, it does have this, what we call this kind of hourglass shape on both the toe side and on the heel side. You can see it's a lot shallower on the heel side and a lot deeper on the toe. People kind of wonder what that's for overall. So that helps you get up an early plane a lot easier. Right. So, you know, when you're getting up on a regular kiteboard and you're trying to push the rocker out or get up onto the edge, you know, in light wind, can't do that quite as easy. And with this side cut profile in there, it helps you get up on the wind, or I'm sorry, up onto the board in lighter wind a lot easier overall. And then it also smooths out that ride and keeps you on the plane a lot easier. The next thing we have, since it is a heel side specific board, we have offset inserts so you can never ride it the wrong way. That's kind of your indicator that you're going to ride it always with your heel side in the right place. The next thing we do too in this board is we all know that contour sometimes in the bottom, or a lot of times in the bottom of the boards, will create drag. Even though it redirects the water through the fins,
it slows the board down.
It slows the board down overall. So as a contour in the bottom creates release for when you're jumping or smooths out chop, when you're in a light wind situation, you're probably not riding in a lot of chop, so you don't need the benefits of a highly contoured bottom to take out the chop. And also when you're in a light wind situation, your release and powered moves are probably limited in general, and you're just kind of looking for a gust to sheet in and get some air and so forth. So what we really did in this board is make it very specific to riding well in those extremely light wind conditions when you want to get out there and just kind of get wet.
Flying magic carpet.
All your buddies are hanging out on the beach, you know, and you're like, I'm going to go grab a session. This is the board that will do it. But we do have a very slight concave that is orientated towards the heel side. So that does help you kind of lock in on that heel side, helps with a bit of the upwind projection and so forth, and just directing the board. And it doesn't make it as slippery. A lot of times with these boards, slippery is a term that's used where it's just, you know, when you end up riding flat, it'll kind of move around because the fins are still pretty small.
From you a little skatey.
Exactly. This will take that slip out, you know, that kind of that slidey or that slippery feel out of it. You don't want to be sliding around out there when you're in light wind, because what happens when you slide around?
You lose traction and you go downwind.
Exactly. So the big key when you're in light wind is you just want to be able to keep your ground. You want to be able to progress upwind and have a good
start and stop at the same spot you came.
Exactly. So that is the Libre. We have it in 150 and this particular one, which is the 160 overall. So those are the three things, Alexis, that I wanted to highlight for Liquid Force. Like I said, we have a very extensive board line. We do have some models too that have some great exotic materials. We make a carbon board, like a carbon drive, which is one of the most affordable carbon boards out there. This thing's light. Feel that thing. Whoa, piece of paper.
It is very, very, very light.
Pretty awesome. But what's great about this board, price point wise, we're looking at probably about $200 to $300 less than most carbon boards out there.
Wow, that's good.
Yeah, you're getting the benefit in a great board that works for all ability levels. in a nice exotic proprietary carbon material to liquid force. This board comes in right about 1.9, 1.85 kgs. That's really light.
Wow, that's very nice. So I noticed we didn't really talk about all the rest of the boards, and you, like you said, you've had a really extensive board line and all the crazy technical, techie features that our viewers out there, want to hear about and talk about. Where can they go online or to find all this info?
Absolutely. So coming up right now in the next couple weeks, we're going to have the global release of the 2018 Liquid Force Kites.com website. So check it every single day. I'm not going to tell you when it's going to happen.
It's a surprise, folks.
It may happen tomorrow. It may happen in a week. It may happen in 2, but it will happen within the next 2. But liquidforcekites.com is where you're going to want to see everything about our new line.
Thank you so much, Gary.